Hey watch friends, today we're going to be taking a look at an all new piece from RZE. This is their latest model, the Valor. This one at time of publishing should be live on their website, and it's actually going to be a short pre-order this time around. So if you haven't seen yet, we previously featured the Resolute, which was their first model, and then also the Endeavour, which was their kind of follow-up to the Resolute. It had clear design language that carried forward between the two. What we'll see with this Valor as we go through this in detail here is they really kept, in my opinion, they kept a lot of the design language. They have the sharp angular cuts, things along those lines for this. So it still feels very RZE to me, but at the same time, this one is clearly a very different piece, and we'll look at this in comparison to the Resolute through the video. But before we dive into that, let's go ahead and take a quick look at the packaging and talk about what you get. So first, this one is going to come with what should be, if you're familiar with RZE, the familiar outer box. And then the same thing is true for this inner pouch as well. I realize this isn't panned real well, but just getting a glance, you can check out the other videos for more detail. But you get these nice pouches for this. It's a zipper pouch. It comes with a microfiber cloth for that. This one does, and we'll talk about this more throughout, this one does have the option of having a bracelet. So it comes standard on this FKM strap, and we'll look at this in more detail as well, but there is the optional bracelet, and we'll take a look at that throughout also. The RZE watches come standard with a 2-year warranty, and now let's go ahead and dive into the actual specs of this specific watch. There's a lot to cover here. So for the case, this one, whereas the first two models were coming in at 40 millimeters, they wanted to up it a little bit on this. So they listed as a 42 millimeter watch. And on my calipers, going from the 3 to 9, if you go in at the inner portion of the crown guard, so how that kind of cuts in, I do get roughly 42 millimeters for that. However, this one does wear a little smaller. So if you have a small wrist, don't get scared off by that. And we'll talk about this one's a little bit tough to pin down as far as the size. So for this, the actual case, if you measure in between the lugs, this is coming in at 39 millimeters. That's the inner portion of the actual case itself. At the crown, so if you go to the widest part, this is coming in at 45.4. So in those respects, part of what this, how this wears a little different is obviously it does have a round presence for the dial and for the bezel, but it almost wears like a subtle rectangle. So it's kind of short here in lug to lug with those angular cuts. So it makes it small wrist friendly, while at the same time still having a lot of on-wrist presence. And we'll look at this on my 6.5 inch wrist through the video. So I find that this one's probably going to be the most versatile size range for them yet. I know some people were turned off by the 40 millimeters. I thought it was great for my wrist. But that being said, I understand larger wrist folks might like a little larger. The bezel on this one is coming in at 40 millimeters. So this is, again, where it kind of plays around. So you have a larger case, and as you can see, you have the extension of the case, but then the actual dial face and the bezel is shrunken down and set back a little bit. Lugs on this is going to be coming standard at a 22 millimeter, which is the same as their prior models. So nice strap change friendliness there. And then the lug to lug, this one's coming in a little bit longer at 48.9, so still plenty small wrist friendly for that for overall. And then of course with those angular cuts, it looks and wears, I think, even a little smaller as far as across the wrist appearance there. So with that out of the way, let's go ahead and check out the thickness on this one. So this is coming in at 12.6 millimeters for overall thickness. However, the mid case is only coming in at 7.3. So that 12.6, as you can see here, that does have a pronounced, so that crystal does sit proud on that. It is a flat sapphire crystal, and it does have an inner AR coating for that, but that 12.6 is very svelte in my opinion, especially for the overall package and with the wider kind of face. I think it slims it down even a little more. So that's a nice touch there also. And then of course that mid case, nice and thin. For the movement on this one, this does change up from their prior models. So this one, as I'm sure you saw, is a chronograph for the functional layout. This one does have the popular Seiko, and as you can see there, it is the VK64, which we'll talk about that more, but that is a mecha quartz movement. If you're not familiar with mecha quartz, what that is effectively a hybrid between a quartz and an automatic or mechanical watch. So this has the base functionality. It is powered primarily by a quartz movement. However, when you activate, and let's go ahead and do so, that chronograph, you can see smooth sweep. This is actually a mechanical for the function or for the drive on that. And let's go ahead and watch how that snaps back. So get a nice stop there. And you can see that just pops right back. And we'll look at this compared to a traditional quartz later on in the video. For water resistance, this one is coming in at 200 meters or 20 atmospheres of water resistance, so still plenty respectable there. Now, one of the areas where all of the RZE models to date really shine, this is made up of titanium. We'll talk about that more. This does have a hardened coating on that. But what that does for you is that brings this weight to a very reasonable. This one on strap, and this is an FKM rubber strap, comes in at 78.8 grams. So just under 80 grams total package for this, which translates to a watch that just disappears on the wrist. Very comfortable, very nice there. I like that a lot. Additionally, we talked about that this will have the optional bracelet going from the Resolute. So let's go ahead and pop in. We'll look at this more. But the Resolute here, this has a similar style bracelet, though this has a more aggressive taper, and we'll talk about that. But giving you an idea here, so this Resolute on the stock canvas strap came in at 65 grams versus this at 78.8. And then this on the bracelet, size to my 6.5-inch wrist, came in at 92 grams. So while I don't have the exact specs on this yet for the bracelet, as it wasn't available at the time of filming here, this one I expect is probably going to come in somewhere around maybe 120 grams, give or take, for that, accounting for the difference and the fact that this has a little less taper to the bracelet. So still very reasonable, still very light on the wrist. All right, so with the basic specs out of the way, let's go ahead and take a deeper dive into the actual watch itself, look at some of the characteristics, what it's like to live with, and then we'll finish with the overall positives, critiques, and the summary as we always do. So first, for dial, this one is going to come with 3 different color options. So of course the white that we're looking at, and then it's additionally going to be available in a salmon colorway, and then there's going to be a black version that's also available for the initial offering. So nice range and good versatility there. Looking at the dial itself, this one, as you can see, of course, does have recessed sub-dials, and you're going to have those at the 3 and the 9 o'clock position. At the 3 o'clock position, as is typical of this specific Mecha Quartz movement, at the 3 o'clock position, you're going to have a 24-hour time. And then at the 9 o'clock position, you're going to have elapsed minutes for the chronograph function. For the overall handset, it's going to be, of course, your primary time, hour, and minute. This one does not have a running second for the primary time. The large second is going to be for the chronograph function. At the sub-dials, you might have noticed that this does have a very attractive railroad track pattern that's inlaid into those. So I think that's nice. In addition to being recessed, that little textural difference there, I think, adds some nice pop. At the 6 o'clock position, you can see it does have a cut-in framed date window. So it doesn't have a raised frame to that, but it does give a nice little showcase to that as opposed to just having a traditional square cut. The dials themselves are going to be a matte texture. And then looking to the outer perimeter, you can see that this does have nice clear markings. Of course, you have your indexes, but then you have your clear markings on a 1/5 scale for the minute and second hand there. Each of these different dials will also come with different accent colors. So you can see on the white version, of course, this one does come with blue accents. It's a nice powder or baby blue, which I think pops really well. I actually had a Zelos Mako in a similar colorway. Liked it a lot on that one. I like it on this one as well. Shifting over to the hardware, this does have very pronouncedly applied markers. So these have a nice raise to them. You can see that they really do pop off of the dial, and I think that adds a lot of depth and is attractively done. The markers are going to be batons, and they are at all 5 increment positions. So even at the sub-dial with the 3 and 9, as well as with the date window at the 6 o'clock, you can see that this does still have very clear and legible batons all the way around. Shifting over to the hands, you can see that this does have what I would describe as like a modified Dauphine style. And of course, with the Lume application for that, that really breaks it up. But you can see the nice typical or traditional crease down the middle with that is a signature of the Dauphine. And speaking of the Lume, this one does have excellent Lume. So we'll pop up some pictures of that. This all the way around from the markers to the handset in low lighting, in mixed lighting, even at an aquarium, got a little bit of red lighting going on there, as well as in total darkness. All of these pictures are with natural charging. So that is not any UV light or anything there. That's just what this looks like from just typical usage. I found great legibility, very happy and impressed with the Lume on this one. So excellently done there. Shifting back to the actual handset itself, you can see the finish. I would describe as like a satin finish for that, and this, of course, on this specific colorway is going to be a silver for that. Shifting over to the bezel, this one, as we already looked at, the bezel is set back, so it does sit a little bit smaller than the case itself. And this, of course, is going to be a fixed bezel, as you would expect for a chronograph, and it does have a tachymeter scale going all the way around for the bezel insert. The insert on this is going to be aluminum, and as you can see, of course, that is what I would assume is anodized for the application there, so you have nice black anodization on this, which really adds that pop in the overall aesthetic. Shifting over to the case, this is one of the real claims to fame of all the RZE watches. So first and foremost, want to address this does have their proprietary ultra hex coating. What that does is you eliminate the typical scratch tendency of titanium. That ultra hex coating makes it more wear resistant, and as I have experienced with my Resolute pair, it does live up to the hype for that. They have worn very well, have little to no markings on there, and really the only markings are where they've actually connected other ultra hex coated pieces. The actual case shape of this is, as we talked about, this does have the typical of RZE angular cuts. It has nice modern looks to that, while at the same time, I think having a traditional nice clean flow all the way around, so it doesn't look too forced as far as the modern touches. Additionally, while I mentioned that this does have sharp angular cuts to this, I do want to mention and note that none of these are actually sharp. So when I say sharp, I mean visually. They actually did a great job of profiling here, where I don't get any sharpness from any surface, which lends to the overall comfort and I think shows great attention to detail in the machining that I have come to expect from RZE. This does have, as you can see, drilled lugs here, so this will add even more to the ease of strap changes on this one. So you have your 20 millimeters, but then you also have your drilled lugs, making that nice and easy there. And then, of course, these lugs are pronouncedly downturned. I don't think that this is going to cause any issues for people with larger wrists. It only sits ever so slightly proud of the case back. So I've found this to wear very nicely on the wrist. Additionally, flipping over, this is one of the things that's really extremely well done on this case. You can see that this does have an integrated crown guard for that, which I think is very cleanly done, but the big thing is this has a really nice touch here with these integrated buttons. So it is something you just don't see, especially on watches of this price point, and we'll talk about price, but I can give you a spoiler. It's cheap. For what you're getting here, I think this is excellently priced and great value. But look at that integration of those buttons. They're super clean, and as we'll look at here, let's go ahead and actually push those. Nice click on that. Nice positive feedback. Nice snap back. Everything about that, I've used the heck out of this, and I found it to be very, very well done. So excellent job on that. And then, of course, with the built-in crown guards here, let's go ahead and actually shift over to the crown. So recessed down in there, you can see the crown does sit just slightly proud of those guards, just as the buttons themselves do, so that makes easy access. This crown is coming in at 6.75 millimeters, and it has just a fantastic knurling on that. Let's flip that over to the back side. You can see a nice knurl pattern. It's aggressive, but not overly so. It's enough that you get easy bite with your fingers, but at the same time, I haven't found this to be sharp on the wrist or anything along those lines, so great job there. This is a screw down crown. That's part of how they get that great water resistance as well. And as you can see, this is the typical RZE popped signed logo there, which I think looks great. Very sharp. Not Lume or anything for that, but I think that's nicely done also. Flipping over to the case back, again, this is one that's going to look very familiar for you. If you're familiar with RZE, just nice, clean, basic text throughout there. It's smooth, it's screw down, it's what you'd expect. I think it's well done, but nothing that's going to blow your socks off with that one. As far as this strap, mentioned that this is an FKM strap. This one is 20 millimeters, but it has the taper down to 17.6 millimeters on my calipers at this last hole there. So it does have a nice taper to that. The big thing with this is being the FKM, this thing is extremely pliable, extremely comfortable on the wrist. But unlike silicone, you don't get any of the dust tendency or anything along those lines. So this is a fantastic choice. It's a nice premium upgrade as far as leather option there, and I think this goes really well with it. Additionally, you might have noticed this does actually have a contour to this, so it does not come straight out. It actually does have that pre-curve to it, which makes it even more comfortable on the wrist as well. And then on the back here, This, you can see, does have for airflow. It has that pattern in there, which also adds to the flexibility, and it does have quick release spring bars. So again, you've got your drilled lugs and quick release spring bars. Very easy to change these out quickly. We talked about that this does come with a bracelet option. So here is again with the Resolute. As you can see, it's going to be a similar type cut, similar lug design for this. Will be obviously a little different to blend in with that, and I'll pop up on the screen what it actually looks like. But it's going to have a similar H-link pattern. The biggest difference is going to be that instead of tapering from 20 millimeters down to 16 millimeters on this to accommodate for this larger case, it's going to be 20 millimeters tapered down to 18 millimeters. So a little more of a subtle taper to that, but otherwise the same greatness that I loved about this bracelet on the Resolute, I expect is going to be the same on this Valor model as well. So excellent touch there. And then shifting back to this, I neglected to say this does have a signed, and this is a titanium buckle, and I believe this is also ultra hex coated for this one. So great option for the overall strap. So that gives you an idea, hopefully, as far as what this watch actually is like. Let's go ahead, and we've popped it up a few times, but there gives you an idea as far as what this looks like in compares to the Resolute here. So there's the Endeavour next to the Resolute. And then popping in another, I wanted to show it just next to another chronograph, and this is one we recently reviewed. This is the Revolot R9. Let's go ahead and get both of those activated. So you can see this one has a traditional quartz movement, whereas this one has the mecha quartz movement. And let's go ahead and stop that. This is where you're really going to notice the difference. If you're not familiar with these, watch the reset on the left. See how that goes all the way through. And then on the right, just snaps back. So this is what you'd expect for an automatic. This is what you'd expect for a quartz. So that just gives you an idea of the movements if you're not yet familiar with those. Personally, I think it's a nice touch, and I think it was a good movement choice to keep the price down, while at the same time giving you some of the benefits of a quartz and some of the benefits of still having an automatic-like experience. All right, so with all of that, let's go ahead and start wrapping this up. We'll address some of the positives, the critiques, as well as the overall summary. So first, for the positives. This one, it has all of the things that I loved about the Resolute as well as the Endeavour, and that is it's durable with that coating, with the overall construction. It feels excellent. The lightness, that on wrist is just fantastic, and that lends to the overall comfort. Comfort has been great on this. It's one that really just disappears, especially with that mecha quartz movement. You just pick it up, slap it on your wrist, and honestly, until you're looking at the time, you can just forget that you're wearing it for most of the day. As far as overall aesthetic, I personally like the look. Obviously, that's subjective. I think it's an attractive looking piece. I like the colorway on this particular one, as well as the layout I think was well done. The back to the movement, this does have the quartz simplicity, so you get all the benefits there. You can pick it up. Yeah, you have to change the battery every potentially 3 years or so, depending on how much you're using the chrono function and that kind of stuff. But it's nice, and you don't have the ticking second that you get, which is my only real detractor with a quartz movement. I don't like that ticking second. Watching that, I prefer sweep, but with this, you get all those benefits. The overall machining on this is just excellent. And that's true with the other RZE pieces as well. You can see nice, tight, crisp lines throughout, complicated cuts here. I think it's just fantastic, especially for the price point. And speaking of price, this one's going to be coming in at $369, which I think for everything you're getting, titanium case, ultra hex coating, good movement choice, all of that stuff, as well as the FKM, everything about it, I think is really a solid value overall. So I think that's very attractively priced. The bracelet, as I mentioned, will be optional. That one's going to come in at $109 for the optional bracelet. I do highly recommend bucking up, though, for the additional expenditure there. The bracelet, if it's anything like the prior two models, is going to be fantastic, and I think it's something you'll want. Additionally, the overall design, just like with the other pieces, I think this one has a unique presence to it. I like that's part of what I enjoy about micro brands, is to get that signature kind of the brand design language, and RZE is one that resonates with me. So I think that's great. As far as the critiques, there really honestly isn't much to say here. The critiques, I have not had any issues with this watch. I found it to be comfortable, found it to be well done. The only things that are really personal preference items is on this particular colorway. I think I would have preferred had they gone with a black satin handset for that. I think it would have popped a little more, and the same thing is true for the markers on the perimeter there. I would have liked to have seen those be black instead of this silver color. I will say you would have had now, when the black was over the subdials, you would have had that as far as blending a little more. But I just think it would have added a little more contrast against this white dial to have that. I haven't found legibility to be an issue, but I would like that pop, and I think the Lume across the black would still give you plenty of contrast there. So that would have personally been my choice and a change that I would have liked to have seen. The bezel insert, as I mentioned, this one does have an aluminum bezel insert. I would have preferred to see that be ceramic. You've got such great durability and wear resistance with the rest of the case and everywhere else. I would have liked to have seen that same scratch resistance on the bezel insert. So that would have been a change I would have made as well. And then the overhang, this is one that I expect is going to be somewhat polarizing. I appreciate what they're doing, and I would not have wanted to see the lugs get kicked out or the case get kicked out. I think that would have made it too large for many small wrists out there. But I will say, that I wasn't sure how I felt about it when I first received the watch. With having that overhang, it's a little bit of an atypical piece and looks, to me, somewhat a little unfinished. But the reality is, on wrist, you don't really notice it at all. It just is there. It's just something that I wanted to mention, but at the same time, I really don't think it's a big deal, and it has not turned into a true critique, but it's something that I did initially observe, so I wanted to mention that. So finally, where does that leave us? Overall, I think this, as I mentioned, is a versatile size. I think that this is going to work well for most, if not all, wrists, depending on your preference. Additionally, I think the overall packaging is just truly a do-all watch. You can pick it up out of the watch box and just go with it. You don't have to set anything with the quartz. You don't have to worry about banging it around or vibrations or anything along those lines. It's just a good do-all watch. I think additionally, the style, I don't think, is too extreme to really turn people off as far as being able to wear this in most settings and situations. So I think as an everyday watch, I think this thing packs a lot of value. I think it's very well done. And overall, in my opinion, this is just another home run for RZE. So definitely kudos to them. So I hope this video has been helpful for you. If you did enjoy it, and you could please hit that like button, that does help me out. And then most importantly, if you haven't already, if you could please hit that subscribe button, that is greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching, and I hope this has been helpful.